think it's 40% of Parkinson's patients have depression and have apathy, fatigue. So a lot of things that go along with depression. Yeah, so it's a pretty nasty disease, because not only do you have the movement disorders, you can have, they have horrible constipation, for example. So some things that aren't all that fun to have.
Welcome to Old Guy Talks to Me, a podcast dedicated to helping guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. Ladies, if you want to know what your guy is thinking, this podcast is for women too. Each week, a special guest helps you create that life you've imagined. We talk anti-aging medicine, personal growth, relationships and hot sex. Yeah, you hear me, getting laid more frequently. Other guy vices, and topics that many don't want to talk about but need to. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to be old. Don't want to miss anything? Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review this podcast. And be sure to go to www.thestandard.academy/magazine and grab a free copy of our new digital magazine, The Standard Academy, where we talk about erogenous zones, growing hair back, and other things that will help you create that kick-ass life. Now get ready to listen up and share with friends.
This is Orr's official Old Guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. That's right, those they love. And sometimes, stuff happens to old guys that, makes them really old. There's lots of stuff. And I hate to tell you, there was a previous episode of something that happened to me just recently that I was afraid of becoming decrepit. I had an ostomy, and we actually recorded an interview with myself. But we're not going to talk about ostomies. We're going to talk about something as important that affects lots of people and lots of men is Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease and some other things that are out there. And with us, we have Dr. Jack Jacobs, President and Chief Science Officer of Zhittya Genesis Medicine in Las Vegas, Nevada. Dr. Jacobs received his Ph.D. in molecular biology from the Washington University School of Medicine, St. Louis, which was the first lab to isolate and characterize the growth factor FGF-1. After graduating, he worked at Merck Co, where he started the Department of Biological Chemistry and was part of the scientific leadership team at Merck. Later, he joined Daniel Montano at CardioVascular BioTherapeutics as their chief scientific officer, where he oversaw FDA-authorized clinical trials in which human FGF1 was tested in a number of medical indications, including coronary artery disease and diabetic foot ulcers. He is now with Zhittya Genesis Medicine. Dr. Jacobs is continuing his efforts on clinical development of human FGF1 for a number of medical indications, including neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's disease and ALS. It's also. Welcome to our program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, that's quite a resume. So you had quite a bit of factor here in the regenerative space. So I always ask my guests this question is, what is the most important thing you've done today?
This morning I exercised at the gym. Got my heart rate up to 160.
All right.
Nothing more important than that at guys our age, right?
I'm a everyday exerciser. Sometimes maybe not on Sunday, but even a lot of times on Sunday. But every day I have a morning ritual that I go through, which includes exercise, meditation, journaling, and a few other things to kind of get me. And I also answer a series of questions, so it gets me started on my day to make it really kind of get my mind focused on what's going to happen that day.
Yeah. So it really clears the mind out, and actually, for people with these diseases we're going to talk about, it really does help the disease state by getting blood flow into the brain. So very.
Now, when you work out, are you a weight guy? Are you a cardiovascular guy? Combination or
I do all cardiovascular. So I start with rowing. I then go to the bicycle, and then I end up with the elliptical.
Okay, all right.
And but I should do. I probably should do more weight. They say doing weights is also good for your bones, right?
The density. What's it called? I think it was called Wolff's Law, that showed the increase in density
Okay.
when you put bone under stress. I lift a lot of weights. I enjoy the weights more than I do the cardio, though I do both. So we're doing. So let's talk about Parkinson's, and then maybe kind of touch a little bit on some of the other neurodegenerative diseases. What causes Parkinson's?
Yeah, well, it's well known now that Parkinson's, certain neurons in your brain become dysfunctional. They start dying off, and it's there. You only have 500,000. You have billions of neurons in your brain. All right, and these neurons are called dopamine neurons. Make up only about 500,000, 500,000, and they are very much involved in movement, controlling movement, sending signals. So they're deep in the base of your brain, these neurons, and they send signals out to your muscles. And when they start degenerating, you start losing motor control. And we all know the shakes and tremors people get with Parkinson's. In fact, the very first thing that goes in Parkinson's disease is sense of smell. A lot of people lose their sense of smell first before they get the tremors and the handshakes.
Okay. I was not aware of that.
Yeah. So the key is why do these neurons start to decline? Why do they start to die? And 10% they know there's a defective gene. So maybe 10% of Parkinson's is hereditary. You got a bad gene. And but we and others feel that what initiates Parkinson is a gradual choking off of the blood flow to that small area in the brain where those neurons are. So basically, they become less blood perfusion, less nutrients, less oxygen, waste products don't get taken away. And we think that process, when it occurs in that area of the brain where those neurons are that are involved in Parkinson's disease, starts choking off those neurons. And in fact, we think the same process is going on with Alzheimer's disease. ALS is Lou Gehrig's disease, but in different areas of the brain. So, thinking about, a golf course, if the sprinkler goes off in one area, you're going to get parched grass. And we believe by bringing blood flow back to those areas, and this is what our drug does, that we can regenerate neurons there. So it's really a regenerative type of medicine.
Yeah. So now you brought up dopamine in terms of it helps control motor functions. It's also a source of pleasure for people also.
Yeah, you're right. It's actually source of not only pleasure, but addictive behavior such as gambling. It can really, So it is called the pleasure neurotransmitter. And so it does many things in the brain, but
or it keeps you as a keyboard warrior on Facebook.
Yeah. That's right. That's funny. Yeah.
But the dopamine is actually, is there because of the dopamine decrease, is there a depression that's associated sometimes with Alzheimer's?
Yeah. I think it's 40% of Parkinson's patients have depression and have apathy, fatigue. So, a lot of things that go along with depression. Yeah. So it's a pretty nasty disease, because not only do you have the movement disorders, you can have, they have horrible constipation, for example. So some things that aren't all that fun to have.
Yeah, I can imagine. When you talk about the supply of blood to the brain in terms of Parkinson's, is that just an isolated area, or is that like a generalized area of the brain that occurs?
Yeah, this is not our work, but they can use these fancy brain imaging machines, MRI. They're called functional MRI, and they can kind of look at blood perfusion in different areas of the brain. And so with the functional MRI, they could actually see about a 50% decrease in blood perfusion in this area of the brain. It's called the substantia nigra region. Nigra because actually the dopamine neurons are kind of dark in color, almost black. So that's why it's called the substantia nigra. And they actually can see a 50%. They compare a healthy 21-year-old male to a 60-year-old with Parkinson's. They see about a 50% decrease in blood perfusion in that area of the brain. Okay,
so it's a specific area in the brain, and because you talked about plaques building up, what is the nature of these plaques? What's the structure? Are they
very similar? Yeah, it's very similar to Alzheimer's disease, where there's In Alzheimer's, they're called beta amyloid plaques, sticky things. They're outside of the neuron. So in Parkinson's, they're called synuclein plaques. So synuclein is the name of the protein that becomes aggregated. So they form these aggregated tangles of the very toxic tangles of protein that are damaging the dopamine neurons as well. And again, we believe that's due to a lack of blood flow, because normally if you had blood perfusion, that would be swept away as a waste product, taken away and degraded. So with less perfusion, not only do the neurons not get enough nourishment, they start kind of bathing in these toxic byproducts that accumulate in the diseases.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So now you have spent a number of years working with FGF1. So tell us what FGF, because I know it stands for something else, and something else probably unpronounceable. But when you tell us what it stands for, then we'll continue to refer to this as FGF1.
FGF, is a protein. So it's like insulin or like growth factor. And it's human, F is fibroblast, G is growth, F is factor. So fibroblast growth factor. That's not that hard.
Oh, that's not that bad.
Yeah. And it's kind of misnamed because the highest quantities are found in our brain. So, but they assayed on these fibroblast cells that makes these cells divide and grow. So that's how it got its name. And actually, it was purified in the lab. I did my PhD in Washington University in St. Louis. So I was with it there. And then actually Merck started developing as a drug back in the 90s. They were putting it on diabetic foot ulcers. So I got to see that at Merck. And then they stopped everything. They didn't think the market, Merck is a mega pharmaceutical company. They only go after markets that are $1 billion or more. So they didn't think this market was big enough, and they put it in the refrigerator. And it really sat there until we started working on it about 10 years ago. And it's a great product. It's a natural product. You use it all the time. You cut yourself shaving, your body makes FGF1. It's a wound healing agent, but it's also very, very potent, what we call a neurotrophic agent. It stimulates neural stem cells to become mature neurons. And so it's very important, we think, in these diseases, and also in just normal aging. We didn't do this work, but Columbia University found that as we age, we have less blood perfusion in our brain, and these stem cells are not as active. They're not forming functional neurons as often as they do in the youngsters. So that's why we forget where we put our key cards or our names, things like that.
Wow. Well, this old guy's been doing that for years. I mean, that's something that's been for like 20 or 30 years, which my life.
And that's why exercise is really important for older people and people with these diseases. You actually can stimulate not only blood flow, but it stimulates new blood vessel formation in the brain by doing this exercise. So I think exercise is as important as some of these drugs are.
Well, I think, a lot of times people, especially, in the 21st, now at our time, expect the drug to do all the work. And you can take all the drugs you want, but if you're not doing the other stuff, they're just not going to be as effective. It's just plain simple.
Right. Yeah. And we're finding, with Parkinson's disease, I mean, we can grow new neurons, but if the people don't rehabilitate themselves, do physical, training, you got to work to regain skills back. If you, regain functional neurons back, you've got to work to kind of retrain your muscles as well.
Well, you brought up an interesting point in terms of dealing with people on this, because the statistics are that, like, even if, let's say, you have coronary bypass surgery, like within just a short amount of time, you're back to your old habits.
Right.
So do you have a way of keeping people on course with an exercise program, or is that still elusive like it is in all other areas?
I won't talk about today, but this grows blood vessels. So you can imagine people with bad hearts, with coronary artery disease. So there's been clinical trials with heart disease that, people get better, but we treated 20 patients in Germany, and we had a 10-year reunion And one guy came in smoking cigars and, drinking and so that guy is going to decline again. Trust me. He got better with the treatment, but you've got to keep up the good life if you want to stay healthy.
Okay. Now, when you have this increased blood flow into the brain with the FGF1, what actually happens in that process?
Yeah, so we can do this in animals. So what we see, it's kind of a two-step process. So we can see, so in animals with experimental Parkinson's, or we've done this also with stroke, animals with stroke, you get a decrease in capillaries, blood vessels. It's clear in stroke, if you block a vessel, you're going to, block off the capillaries downstream from that. So that creates what's called ischemia. Ischemia, you can get it in the brain, you can get it in the heart. So ischemia is when a tissue lacks oxygen and starts starving and begins to die. So when that happens, the cells in the brain, both the blood vessels and the neurons that are kind of dying off, they put out signals that, we need more blood here. We need more blood vessels. And so they put out receptors for these growth factors like ours. So there's actually fibroblast growth factor receptors. There's actually 7 different kinds in the brain, and they increase dramatically when the brain is under stress. So it's kind of a response to stress. They put out the receptors, and then when we come in therapeutically with our drug, the brain is, it's primed. It's primed to respond. So we first see new blood vessels growing over the first 2 to 4 weeks, better blood perfusion that gets the neural stem cells activated and forming new neurons, whether it's dopamine neurons with Parkinson's or with stroke, whatever area of the brain was damaged by a stroke, we can regenerate new neurons again, and this is in animals. So that's why we're excited about doing this in people now, but sometimes rats get better and people don't. So you got to be very careful about promising too much, right?
Yeah.
Do you need accountability? Are you looking to change the course of your life but have failed to keep on track? Too often we take in information and fail to act. Do you need an accountability program to stay the course? Then go to www.thestandard.academy and find out about my accountability program that goes with my course that helps you find out what you want, why you want it, and how to get it. The accountability program keeps you on track to get results.
So basically, it's the increase of vasculature washes out the plaque. Would that be an accurate way of saying it?
Yeah. So what is that? So in these diseases, there can be dead neurons. Some are hibernating, so they're not functioning, but they're hibernating because they lack blood flow. So we think we can bring those out of hibernation first, and then to get new ones, you've kind of got to get the stem cells going. They have to differentiate, form these new neurons. That takes a bit longer. So we think, we're getting new neurons regenerated, and we're just cleaning up the environment. We're getting more blood there, more glucose, more oxygen, and we actually showed in animals that we can get rid of that plaque in animal models. So it's much decreased. So kind of cleaning up a toxic environment for the neurons is the way to look at it.
So in humans, and I don't know, how much data you have, but how long do you talk about seeing some of the a reversal of some of the symptoms of Parkinson's and with the administration of FGF1?
Yeah. So we just finished our first study. It was a small study in the Virgin Islands. And we originally thought we were going to have to give the drug intravenously, IV, which, and we're going to give for a month. So when you give something intravenously for a month, you have to put in what's called a central line, a catheter line, which is surgery. And basically you got to stick a catheter in a person's arm and thread it up near their heart. So that was going to be, with Parkinson's disease, these patients have enough problems. They need a catheter sticking out of their arm. So we did some animal studies. We found that if you squirt it up your nose, intranasal delivery, we can get twice the amount of our growth factor into the brain, squirting it up the nose with a special device than intravenously. So,
Wow.
yeah, really, this guy, a guy has a company in Seattle. He's made these intranasal devices. So basically, atomizes our FGF1 solution into very tiny droplets that get propelled with his device up to the very top of the nasal cavity, and their nerves, you smell. So you smell things. That's your brain communicating, right, with your olfactory nerves. Yeah. So they found the FGF1 goes right up the olfactory nerves into the brain through the olfactory bulb, and then spreads out through most of the brain. So I was really happy, and so were our patients. So they're down there in the Virgin Islands sniffing, snorting, or whatever you want to call it. The FGF1 is actually they press a button, and 7-second delivery of the gentle mist goes up their nose, and they breathe it into up their nose. And yeah, so they did that for a month. And we do motor skill examination. We have videos, and we have a doctor running the trial, and there's standardized testing you can do on these patients. And we found after a month that their motor scores had improved by about 50%, which is, in our minds, remarkable. Basically, a 50% improvement in their tremors, mainly motor skills. We can't really test their smell or their thinking or depression, but they were happy. And so we hope to see additional improvement. In the animals, it kind of took 3 to 4 months to see optimal improvement. So they're going home now after a month of treatment, and we're going to follow them on Zoom calls, maybe every month, to see how their symptoms, are doing. Hopefully they'll get better. Maybe if they stay the same, that's okay. We don't want to see progression, but we got to call it like it is. But so far, we're very pleased with the results. Appears very safe. They didn't have any side effects from taking this drug. And yeah, we're going to do a webinar on the 23rd of June where we're going to show the results of the videos that we took. And I think it's pretty remarkable, but it's still a small number of patients. Got to repeat it. Being at Merck, I know you got to do blinded, placebo-controlled, the whole 9 yards, and we haven't done that yet. So Anthony Fauci would not approve our drug at this point.
Yeah, he'd use also lots of qualifiers like maybe, possibly, could, right. And then send everyone off into a tinsy. I'm just thinking, because you said that the people were responding better than the rats were initially, but I assume that's part of the method of administration, because I'm sure you didn't have a nasal device for the little rats.
So the rats got intravenously, and actually another group, this isn't our work, but another group took our same growth factor and gave it to monkeys with Parkinson's. So, and they drill a hole in the skull of the monkey. And yes, it's really, these models of Parkinson in animals, they use a herbicide. It's paraquat. It's kind of, I don't know if you've seen, there are a lot of internet ads. If you have Parkinson's and we're using Roundup, call us. So these lawyers, yeah. So actually Parkinson's is much more prevalent in agricultural communities that use a lot of herbicides, fertilizers, things like that. And this one that's using these animals, it's actually kind of a tragic story behind it. It was in the 80s, marijuana growers were spraying it on their crops to keep the pests off. And then one guy, some kids broke in at night and sold the marijuana and smoked it, and they came down with irreversible Parkinson's syndrome. So real tragedy. But that same drug now is used in all these animal models of Parkinson's to bring on mainly the motor symptoms, the tremors.
Yeah. Wow. So
it's kind of crazy. Sad story.
Yeah. Now, is FGF, and I guess I'm going to say this as far as the United States, is FGF one available for use in humans in the United States, or is it still in clinical trials, or are there particular things you can use it for and not for others?
Yeah, no, it's not approved for human use. It's approved for clinical trials, and you can buy it, for lab work. Commercial firms sell it, but it's not available as a pharmaceutical anywhere in the world yet. So we're hoping to bring it forth, and maybe in 2 to 3 years, have inhaled forms of FGF1 for Parkinson's. We're going to do other trials in Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis. All these diseases, we feel there's a blood flow component, a choking off of neurons by lack of blood flow. So we're going to try it. I mean, we're doing like 5 to 10 patients, and these aren't 100-patient trials. So, we're a small biotech, so we're not like Merck. We have to pay attention to where the money's going, and
Sure.
So we're trying to be lean and mean, but we have a lot of followers. I mean, there are Parkinson's disease groups that follow us, and we have a newsletter that goes out every month, and that's going to about, I think, 80,000 subscribers now. So people are following us, and people with these diseases are very, very motivated to, get something new that, there are drugs that treat Parkinson's, but they tend to wear off after 5 years or so. And then really the only thing the patients have, it's called deep brain stimulation, where they actually implant electrodes into the brain and stimulate the brain with basically shocking it. And that works very well for some people, but again, it's time limited and eventually wears off.
Yeah. It seems also probably seems highly invasive, and I suspect costly.
It is costly, although insurance does pay for it. It does pay for it. It works in maybe 40 to 50% of the people, but you're right. There's infection. You can get there's a small incidence of stroke when you're pushing 2 electrodes, down into the midbrain. It's
just what you want when you have Alzheimer's is a stroke. Doesn't sound like a good scenario. Now, you have at the Zhitty Wund Healing, do you have other wound healing products that you have?
We're going to develop. Yeah. So, this FGF1 really was founded on its wound healing abilities. And again, these are, they're diabetic foot ulcers. So they're underperfused as well. So there's diabetics that have blood vascular problems. And so these diabetic ulcers are underperfused. There's less blood flow, less capillary. So yeah, and that one is simple. It's a topical drug. We just put it in a cream and put it on top of the ulcer. And Merck published their data, and they showed with 5 months of treatment, they can completely close these ulcers, these diabetic foot ulcers. So it really works. I'm surprised. Well, I know why no one else picked it up, because the patent has expired on it. So no big pharma is going to go after something.
I was going to ask, there is no patent. It's all gone.
Yeah, but we still feel it's worth developing. And actually, in the US and Europe, there are, as part of the Obama, the Affordable Care Act, they passed some protection for drugs that are no longer patented. But if you bring them to market first, they give you about 10 years of market protection, because there are a lot of drugs sitting on the shelf without patents that could be useful.
Sure.
For diseases like FGF1. We think it could be useful, but no big pharma is going to take it on without a patent protection. But we hope it's called market exclusivity protection will protect us at least for a while anyway.
Well, at least maybe get some of your initial investment out and get a market share to where you're kind of the number one group in this area. All right. Well, thank you. Well, I just found this very, very interesting.
Just for your viewers, and maybe you're Ukrainian, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Zhittya means.
Well,
light.
it's actually I use your pronunciation, but it's actually Zhittya, which means light.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Ukrainian. So our CEO is married to Ukrainian, and so she, as the wife, had only one vote to name the company. She got it, and that's why we call it Zhittya, but it means life in Ukrainian. So a lot of Russians and Ukrainian recognize our symbol, which is it's an alphabet symbol, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do that. All right. Yeah. I actually had a chance to meet your CEO once here at a luncheon in Las Vegas. So.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was his wife with him?
No, it was not. No.
You would remember. She's very striking.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on oldguytalkstome.com and telling us about the new research, and we look forward to maybe hearing more about it as you get closer to where we actually may be able to get it into humans rather than just monkeys. So
we went into our first few humans, and we hope to expand that. Yeah. So we're no more monkeys, only humans from now on out. Right.
All right. Good for you. All right. Well, Dr. Jacobs, thank you very much. And this is Oris, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com. Remember, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love. And I want you to do several things. First, I want you to share this podcast. Then I want you to rate and review it. And if you give me a bad review, that's okay. I will love you. Actually, if you're kind of a rabid bad reviewer, that helps drive my numbers up on the various social media. So that's wonderful. And remember, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love. Until next time.
Thank you for joining Dr. Orist and his incredible guest. Like what you heard and learned? Then be sure to do 3 things. 1, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. 2, share this with someone who may need to hear it. 3, leave a review and rate this podcast. Opt in at www.thestandard.academy/magazine and get our free digital magazine with savings, articles, and deeper dives into cool controversy. Be the guy who takes action. Without action, you're not going to get the results you want. Thank you again, and make it a great day.